Good morning, or is it good afternoon? I'm gonna go a little bit old school and talk about Bitcoin as the killer app for blockchain. So let's get a raise of hand. It's already August 2017. How many of you here own Bitcoin? Wow, so many people still don't. Okay, so that's not surprising. I think give it another 10 years and we'll get to 100%. Okay, so as we know, Bitcoin is the first application of blockchain. And the question is it really money? Is money the killer use case for Bitcoin, the killer use case for blockchain? So we all know Bitcoin is a good store of value. So this is original content I've developed over the last few days, and I'm very happy to share with you guys as the first audience. Essentially, we have 5 key questions about Bitcoin, money, and digital currencies. So what led to this thinking, this presentation, is when central banks talk about issuing digital currencies. So many central banks in the world have published papers and talked about issuing digital currencies on the blockchain, and I wanted to see how it's different from Bitcoin. So question number 1 is, who can have the money? So whether it's a central bank, whether it's cash, whether it's gold or Bitcoin, who can have the money? Is it anyone? Anywhere? You could bring your own wallet? Or does the money have to be in designated accounts and approvals are required, this application process is controlled? So think about, what's the answer for Bitcoin? Let's hear it. A or B? What's the answer for Bitcoin? A, that's right. So for Bitcoin, anyone can have money in any account. You essentially bring your own wallet, much like the wallet you have in your pocket. And question number 2 is, can money be anonymous? So in the A answer, it can be anonymous, anyone can hold money. In the B, you cannot, meaning identity is required. So that you would have to reveal your identity and it's tied to that. So again, for Bitcoin, what's the answer here? It's A. Now notice that I'm not making a valid judgment whether the A choice is better or the B choice is better. I'm just explaining the characteristics of Bitcoin in this case. All right, question number 3. This is A, so A is Bitcoin. Question number 3, how are payments and transactions handled? In the A choice, they're always allowed. Transactions are final, meaning no reversals, no recourse, no sort of chargebacks. In the B case, there's an approval process. Approval is required for payments, and they're subject to reversals, chargebacks, and counterfeits, and all that stuff. So here, again, we have a difference here. How is Bitcoin handled here? A or B? A, very good. So you see a pattern, huh? All right, question number 4. Are there restrictions on the actual payments and transactions? Or even the amounts? Or the restrictions? So A would be no. It's what I call freedom of money. No restrictions. You can pay anyone, any amount, anywhere. And B, is there restrictions on the amounts, on the frequency, rate limits, and even the destination, meaning who can be paid, who cannot be paid. So again, what's Bitcoin? It's A. Okay, so now you get the trend. Okay, all right, question number 5. How or whether or not the value inside the money is preserved? So think about that. How is the value preserved? A would be, yes, the value is preserved. Dilution is rare or not possible. In the B case, the money's value is subject to dilution, inflation, and the loss of purchasing power. A for Bitcoin? Very much so. So just as an example, I have a $50 bill here. This can stay with me in my wallet for 10 years, 20 years. In fact, I have one of the really old, sort of 30-year, 40-year-old $100 bills from 1977. And I still have it, but the value has gone away from the bill. So that's why the value in the money itself is different. So Bitcoin is A. Okay, all right, you ready? Here's the money slide. Here's where the conversation gets interesting. So I've listed the 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna go through and tell you about Bitcoin. So what we have here, we have straight A's, 5 A's, 4.0 GPA for Bitcoin. Okay, so what do we compare it to? What should we compare it to next? I have a next column, I've hidden it. What should we compare to next? Can you guys see it on this slide? No. Oh. Can we show the slides on both sides of the screen, please? AV team? Lewis? Anyone? I'll bribe you.
If you do it, I'll get some Bitcoin.
Can we show the slide on both the left and the right screen?
Okay.
Yes?
No, I don't think you can do it.
Cannot do it? Okay. Well, okay, how about, yeah, zoom the camera. There you go. That's an idea. Brilliant. Zoom the camera onto the center slide, and then... Yeah, we have Bitcoin blockchain. We just don't have good AV. All right, there it is. There it is. Okay. All right, zoom out a little bit. Okay, I'll let you guys figure it out. Okay. All right. So, anyways, Bitcoin has 5 A's for all the questions. Okay. So essentially, the from the perspective of Bitcoin, obviously the A answer is better than the B answer. So, again, there's no judgment per se because different types of money have different answers. And what I'm going to ask you about is, what should we compare to next? Ethereum? Not quite. We're going to go a little bit back to the old days. So we've heard the term Bitcoin is digital gold, right? I'm going to show you why that is. So if you look at gold, here's how it shows up for gold. It's AAA, A minus, and A. So the main difference is question number 4. Whether there's true freedom of money, any payment restrictions. So the difference here, why does it get an A minus, is that in theory, gold, you can give any amount of gold to anyone, anywhere in the world. And there's no restrictions on amounts or limits, rate limits or anything. However, the reason it gets an A minus is because gold is physical, it's very heavy. So it's actually difficult to give someone large amounts, whether it's buying a house or buying an aircraft carrier. So it gets more difficult, and also the security involved with moving the gold around. So that's why for gold, you get A minus for sort of question number 4. But everything else, it's very similar. So Bitcoin in some ways is an improvement on gold. So that's why it's very similar, all the A's except for the transaction amounts, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so next we're gonna compare it to money, cash. Okay, so are you guys ready? So for cash, it looks like this. It's AA, meaning, let's look at question number 1, okay? Are there restrictions on accounts and wallets? No, anyone can have cash. You can bring your own wallet. You can hold cash anywhere in your pocket without a wallet. And of course, it's anonymous, so privacy is allowed. And for question 3, why is it an A minus? Well, the reason is when you pay with cash, there's always a small chance that it's counterfeit money. So the recipient might not get it. Do you follow me? So with the risk of counterfeit, that's why for 3, it's actually A minus and not a full A. For question number 4, it's also A minus because of the burden of the cash. You hear about drug dealers, lugging around suitcases full of cash, going across customs, going across the border, and so on. So there's no true freedom because it gets really hard when you're moving around millions of dollars. I'm sure many of you have experience, right? Okay, maybe not. I don't either. That's what I hear. Okay, and number 5, this is where it gets interesting. It says, is the value of money preserved? So what do you think? It's not, because of inflation and depreciation of the purchasing power, the loss of purchasing power. So that's why for cash you get a solid B for effort, but no A here, okay? And then I'm going to compare the cash and gold. So without comparing cash to Bitcoin, but compare cash to gold, because gold and cash, which came first? Gold came first, and then cash came later. So in fact, the right side column, the cash came later. In fact, when did that come? Do you guys know when this came? Technically, in the final, the cash we have today, this version of cash, it came in 1971 when we left the gold standard. When Nixon closed the gold window, took us off the gold standard. And this is what happened. So did we get better or get worse? In fact, we got worse on question number 5. But it was very subtle, no one noticed. And this is also precisely why governments took us off the gold standard. Because by having a cash standard, they can now have sort of their printing of money. So in the last 12 months, we just got the report from the Federal Reserve. The United States printed $98 billion of extra money in the last 12 months. And all of Bitcoin is only 70 billion. And that's just in all of 8 years, 9 years, 7 billion. Sorry, 70 billion today. But the money they printed in the last 1 year is 98 billion. Okay? So this is where it gets interesting. Okay, so now, besides cash, what's the other kind of money we have? It's actually the money that's not in your pocket. So the money you have, it's either in cash or the next one's called bank money. And this is where it gets interesting. Bank money is actually different from cash. Do you guys follow? And here's why it's different. It's a nice set of B's. B for banking. The accounts are actually designated. They cannot be unrestricted. You cannot bring your own account. That's why when you go to banks, you have to open an account. They give you an account number. You cannot open an account for someone else, nor can your cat or mouse or dog have its own account. So for the second question, anonymous, certainly it's not anonymous. Everything's tied to identity. So for the third question, why is it B? Because all bank transfers are subject to approvals. There's reversals. They could take money out. They could put money in. If your company payroll, this happened to me once, where they would pay you, by accident, they paid you twice a month instead of just one time. They could actually pull the money back out without asking you. So banks have control over the transaction flow of money. And of course, banks have control over the restrictions of payments, whether it's amounts or rate limits and so on. So question number 4 is also a solid B. Now, if you look at question number 5, I put a B+. Do you guys see it on the left and right? Oh, what happened? So question number 5, value of money preserved. Why is it a B+ compared to cash? Because of interest. That's it. In fact, this is the subtle thing. For the extra interest you get in your in the bank account, a lot of people are willing to forgive their so-called rights to the money. So for the first 4 questions, you go from A to B. You downgrade from A to B just for the benefit of that 1 or 2 or 3% interest. And people are willing to do that. So it's very cunning, if you ask me. It also explains why there are certain populations out there who prefer cash instead of having the money in the bank. Because they value questions 1, 2, 3, and 4 higher than they value question number 5. Does that make sense? So you're giving up questions 1 through 4 for the purpose of interest. And this is where they get you. That's why for the most of us, I would argue 90% of your money is actually held in the bank and not in the form of physical cash. But it's physical cash, that's where your freedom is. Your freedom lies in questions 1 to 4. That's your freedom of money. If you give it up, the banks have it, they give you nominal interest. All right, so nothing new here, but this is a good way to think about the process of money, okay? And then question number 5 is what I call CBDC. People have used this term. It stands for central bank issued digital currencies. So what do you think it will look like? Central bank issued digital currencies. So this is a legitimate question. This is how I started with this thinking process all along. And for question number 1, let me ask the audience, okay? If a central bank like the Federal Reserve, Bank of England, China's People Bank of China, and so on, were to issue a digital currency that's on a blockchain, do you think, question number 1, the money in there would remain in accounts that you create your own private keys, or will it be assigned to you? Assigned to you. It turns out question number 1 and question number 2 are related. Because most likely it's going to be assigned, and why is that? Because they wanted to tie to your identity. They want to know who has the accounts and so on and so forth. So if they want to know the accounts, most likely it will be assigned and most likely it will be a B. So that's why question 1 and 2 are both what? Both B, most likely. Okay? And then how about question number 3? Will they be able to have final say in terms of payments, whether it goes through, whether it gets returned, and so on and so forth? Yes? It's a centralized blockchain and not a decentralized blockchain, most likely. Okay, so 3, it'll actually be a B as well. For question 4, what do you guys think? Payment restrictions, freedom of money. Now, this could go either way. You'll see I put an A over here. Maybe that's the way it's different from cash, bank money. They'll allow you to send your money yourself from your own app, digital wallet, to another person. It might get there's a small chance it'll get reversed, but you can send it yourself. That's A. That's what I think. And then for the last question, what do you think about value of money preserved? Will you get interest on it? Negative interest. I like that. Okay, but the idea is that they could give you interest on it, so it's also a B. So here's what I have: B, 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 A, and B plus. So the caveat is for the 5th column for the CBDC. No bank has issued it yet. There's been some white papers, people have been talking about it. There's no solid way. There's no solid evidence of it yet. But most likely, my thinking is going to be B, 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 A, and B plus. And you look at the difference between bank money is that the advertised that central bank issued digital currency will be better than bank money because you can have the own freedom to transfer without going through the third party, through blockchain, through signing a transaction, and so on. So question 4, that's how they make it more compelling than the money you have in Wells Fargo, Bank of America. You guys follow me? However, and there's no surprise here, because if the central banks didn't want to do this, they want to do all A's, what they should do, what should they just do? They should just look at Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of the other digital currencies. So that's my conclusion, is that despite what they say, central banks, digital currencies, if it's digital currency, if it's issued by a central bank, most likely it's still very much centralized and different than the Bitcoin. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for listening.